My husband poured red wine over my head in front of 200 guests. Not by accident. Not because his hand slipped. Not because someone bumped into him. He looked me in the eyes, raised the glass slowly, and emptied it over my hair, my face, my cream dress, and the small diamond necklace my mother left me before she died. The ballroom went silent. Even the jazz band stopped playing. For one long second, all anyone could hear was the soft drip of wine falling from my chin onto the marble floor. My husband, Victor Langley, stood in front of me with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Beside him was his mistress, Celia Voss, wearing a silver dress that sparkled every time she moved. She placed one hand over her mouth, pretending to be shocked, but her eyes were bright with pleasure. Victor leaned close enough for only the front tables to hear, and said, "Now maybe you'll remember your place. My place. In front of his investors. In front of his business partners. In front of the mayor, half the city's old money families, and a room full of people who had spent the evening pretending not to notice that Victor had arrived with another woman while his wife sat alone at table 19. My mother-in-law, Gloria Langley, sat near the stage with a glass of champagne in her hand. She did not stand. She did not gasp. She simply smiled like she had waited years to see someone put me where she thought I belonged. And I stood there, soaked in red wine, while 200 people watched to see whether I would cry. Victor expected tears. He expected begging. He expected me to run to the restroom, hide in shame, and return later with swollen eyes, apologizing for ruining his night. Because that was what I had done for years. I had cleaned up his messes, softened his insults, covered his debts, explained away his coldness, made excuses for his mother, smiled beside him at galas where he introduced me like a decoration, and treated my silence like proof that I had no power. But that night, something changed. Not loudly, not dramatically. Something inside me simply closed. I reached for a napkin from the nearest table, wiped the wine from my eyes, and looked at Victor. "Are you finished?" I asked. His smile faded a little, because that was not the reaction he wanted. Celia lowered her hand from her mouth. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Victor stepped closer, his voice low and angry. "You embarrassed me." I looked down at my ruined dress, then back at him. "No, Victor," I said quietly. "You embarrassed yourself." His face hardened. He did not know it yet, but in less than 24 hours, he would be sitting across from a legal team, begging for the one signature that could save the billion-dollar deal he had spent 3 years chasing. He did not know that the company signing that deal was not controlled by the men he had been flattering all night. It was controlled by me. Before I continue, tell me where you are watching from tonight. And if you have ever been humiliated by someone who thought your silence meant weakness, stay with this story. Because sometimes the person they disgrace in public is the one holding the pen in private. My name is Nadia Langley now, but before Victor gave me a last name that became heavier than a chain, I was Nadia Adewale, daughter of a quiet mother, and a father everyone called Mr. Samuel. My father owned a small printing shop on the corner of Delaney Street and 4th. It was not impressive from the outside. The sign was faded. The front window had a small crack near the bottom. The floor creaked when you walked past the counter. The old machines in the back made so much noise that my father had to speak loudly, even when he was standing right beside you. But that shop fed us. That shop clothed me. That shop sent me to school. And that shop taught me something about people that no classroom ever could. People came to my father when they needed something made visible. Wedding invitations, funeral programs, business cards, church flyers, school banners, restaurant menus, campaign posters, divorce forms, lost dog notices. Every joy, every grief, every dream, every emergency passed through that shop in black ink and paper dust. My father used to say, "Nadia, people show you who they are by what they want printed large and what they try to hide in small letters." I laughed when I was young. I thought he was joking. He was not. My mother, Amina, was softer than him, but not weaker. She sewed dresses from home and sang while she worked. Her voice was low and warm, the kind that made even sad songs feel safe. She believed a woman should never mistake endurance for obedience. "If you stay," she would say, threading a needle, "stay because love is alive, not because fear is comfortable." I wish I had understood her sooner. I met Victor Langley when I was 26. He walked into my father's printing shop on a rainy afternoon needing 500 brochures by morning. He was wearing an expensive gray suit, holding a phone in one hand and a coffee in the other, speaking to someone like the whole world had disappointed him by moving too slowly. My father looked at the file and said, "This job needs 2 days." Victor smiled, the kind of smile rich men use when they think charm can bend time. "I'm sure you can make an exception." My father did not smile back. "Time does not care about your suit." I nearly laughed from behind the counter. Victor looked at me then. That was the first time his attention landed on me, and I hated how quickly I felt it. He was handsome in a controlled way. Sharp jaw, clean haircut. Watch that cost more than our monthly rent. He had the air of a man who expected doors to open before he touched them. But there was panic under it. I saw it later. My father saw it that day. Victor was not powerful then. He was pretending toward power. There is a difference. He worked for a development group owned by a family friend and was trying to secure his first major independent project. The brochures were for an investor meeting. He needed them badly. My father agreed to finish them by morning, but only after Victor paid extra for the rush and apologized for assuming pressure was the same as importance. Victor did apologize. To my father. Then to me. He came back the next morning. Fresh suit, calmer voice, carrying coffee for everyone in the shop. For the next month, he kept finding reasons to return. A revised brochure, new cards, a folder design, a thank you note. Then one Friday evening, he asked if he could take me to dinner. My father said nothing when I told him. That worried me. He only cleaned his glasses and asked, "Does he listen when he is not getting what he wants?" I rolled my eyes. "Daddy, it's dinner." He nodded. Dinner is where many women begin ignoring evidence. I went anyway. Victor knew how to be wonderful when he wanted something. He chose a restaurant with soft lights and tablecloths. He asked about my life. He listened when I spoke about my mother's sewing, my father's shop, my dream of starting a literacy and business support program for women who wanted to launch small enterprises. He said he admired women with quiet ambition. Quiet ambition. At 26, I heard beauty in that phrase. At 42, I hear warning. Victor liked my calm. He liked that I did not compete for attention. He liked that I knew how to make things run smoothly without demanding applause. He liked that I could stand beside him and make his sharp edges look softer. He did not love my quiet. He used it. But I did not know that then. We married 3 years later. His family hated the wedding. Not openly. The Langleys were too polished for open hatred. They wrapped their disapproval in etiquette. Gloria Langley, Victor's mother, suggested a different venue 6 times. She called my father's printing shop quaint. She offered to upgrade my dress. She asked whether my mother would need help finding something appropriate to wear, even though my mother could sew elegance into a flour sack if she had to. Victor told me to ignore her. "She's just particular," he said. Particular. That was the first word he used to make cruelty sound like personality. The wedding took place in a garden behind a historic house. My father printed the invitations himself. My mother made a small lace handkerchief for me to carry. Victor looked beautiful under the oak trees, smiling like he had chosen me against the world. I believed that smile. At the reception, my father danced with me and whispered, "If he ever makes you feel small, come home before small starts feeling normal." I hugged him and told him Victor would never do that. My father did not argue. That was his mercy. The first years of marriage were good enough to keep me hopeful. Victor was building Langley Urban Partners, a real estate development company focused on hotels, luxury residences, and commercial spaces. His family had name recognition but less money than people believed. Victor wanted to rebuild that name into something powerful. I helped because that was what I thought marriage meant. I organized investor dinners, reviewed presentation decks, coordinated printing materials through my father's shop, helped schedule meetings, managed guest lists, sent thank you notes, smoothed over missed payments with vendors when Victor's cash flow was tight. When Victor was anxious, I calmed him. When he was embarrassed, I covered him. When he was cruel, I told myself he was under pressure. Pressure became the third person in our marriage. It was always there, sitting between us, excusing him. He snapped because of pressure. Forgot my birthday because of pressure. Missed my mother's surgery because of pressure. Called my work little projects because of pressure. Humiliated me in front of his mother because pressure made him impatient. But pressure does not create character. It reveals what character already permits. My father died first. A stroke in the printing shop, right beside the old machine he loved most. One moment he was helping a young woman design flyers for her bakery. The next, he was gone. The grief nearly split me open. Victor came to the funeral, but he was distracted. He checked his phone during the burial. He left the family meal early because he had a call with Singapore. Gloria sent flowers with a card that said, "Our condolences during this difficult transition." Transition. As if my father had changed departments. My mother lasted only 2 years after him. People say she died of heart failure. I think part of her simply followed him. Before she passed, she called me to her bedside and pressed a small brass key into my palm. "Your father left something for you," she whispered. "I know. The shop papers." "No," she said. "More than the shop." Her breath was thin. "There is a blue safe behind the cutting table. When you are ready, open it." Not when Victor is ready. You. I wanted to ask what she meant, but she was tired. So I kissed her forehead and promised. After her funeral, I went to the shop. It smelled like ink, old paper, machine oil, and my childhood. I stood behind the counter and cried until my chest hurt. Then I locked the door and left without opening the safe. That was my mistake. Grief can make even a key feel too heavy. Years passed. Victor's company grew, then almost collapsed, then grew again. The bigger he became, the smaller I was expected to be. He moved us into a house with stone columns and rooms too cold to feel lived in. Gloria visited often and rearranged things as if the house belonged more to her bloodline than my marriage. By then, I had started a small foundation in my parents' memory. It helped women learn bookkeeping, branding, and basic business systems. We offered workshops, printing support, and tiny grants to women starting home-based businesses. Victor hated it, not directly. He knew better than to say he hated something charitable. He called it cute. At a dinner with investors, someone asked what I did. Before I could answer, Victor smiled and said, "Nadia keeps herself busy with community ladies and craft businesses." The table laughed lightly. I felt heat rise in my face. He squeezed my hand under the table. Later in the car, I said, "Why did you say it like that?" "Like what?" "Like my work is a hobby." He sighed. "Nadia, not everything is an attack." It felt like one. Then stop being so sensitive. Sensitive. Another word people use when they want to injure you and judge the bruise. The affair with Celia did not surprise me when I found out. That was the saddest part. Celia Voss was a public relations strategist hired for Victor's billion-dollar redevelopment bid. The project was called Harbor Line 1, a massive waterfront hotel, retail, and residential development. It required city approval, outside capital, environmental clearance, and the final signature of a private company called Meridian North Holdings. Victor spoke about Meridian North like it was a kingdom. "If we get them," he said, "everything changes." Meridian North owned critical land rights, infrastructure access, and private funding channels. Without them, the project was just a beautiful dream on expensive paper. With them, Victor would become one of the most powerful developers in the region. Celia helped him polish the dream. She was brilliant at image, I will give her that. She knew how to make greed look like vision and risk look like inevitability. She was tall, graceful, and always dressed like a magazine had approved her before she left the house. Victor said she understood the scale of his world. That sentence told me everything. The first time I met Celia, she looked at me like I was furniture in a room she planned to redesign. "Nadia," she said, smiling, Victor speaks so warmly of you. Warmly, not proudly. Not often. Warmly. How nice, I said. Her eyes moved to my dress. I love how understated you are. There are insults that arrive wearing perfume. That was one of them. Gloria loved Celia immediately. Of course she did. Celia had old money manners and new money hunger. She knew how to praise Gloria's pearls, ask about family history, and make Victor feel like a man whose destiny required a better woman beside him. Soon, Celia was at every event. Then every meeting. Then every dinner. Then one evening, she was in my house. I came home from the foundation office and found her in my kitchen, barefoot, drinking sparkling water from a crystal glass. Victor stood beside the island, sleeves rolled up, laughing at something she said. Gloria sat at the breakfast table, smiling like the scene pleased her. I stopped in the doorway. Victor turned. Nadia, you're early. Early. To my own home. Celia raised her glass. We were just reviewing tomorrow's gala notes. Barefoot? Victor's face tightened. Nadia. Gloria sighed. Must you always make a room uncomfortable? Celia smiled softly. I can put my shoes back on if it bothers you. It did bother me. Not the shoes. The belonging. The way she stood in my kitchen as if I had interrupted her evening. I looked at Victor. We need to speak privately. He exhaled. Not now. That was when I knew I had already been replaced in every place except paperwork. The Harbor Line Gala was supposed to be Victor's grand moment. 200 guests, investors, city leaders, press, lawyers, consultants, executives, everyone who mattered to the deal. The event was held in the Grand Astoria Ballroom, all chandeliers, white roses, polished marble, and waiters carrying trays of champagne like the world had never known hunger. I did not want to go. Victor insisted. Appearances matter, he said. I almost laughed. Our marriage was dying, but my attendance was still useful. I wore a cream dress my mother had once helped me alter. Simple, elegant, not expensive enough for Gloria's approval, but meaningful enough for me. Around my neck, I wore my mother's small diamond pendant. Victor barely looked at me when I came downstairs. Gloria did. White would have been more appropriate, she said. Cream can look tired under ballroom lighting. I touched the pendant and said nothing. At the gala, Victor arrived with me technically, but not really. The moment we entered, Celia appeared beside him. She wore silver and confidence. Cameras flashed. Victor placed his hand lightly on my back for exactly 3 photographs, then moved closer to Celia when reporters asked questions about the project. I stood at table 19. Not table 1. Not beside him. Table 19. That was where his assistant placed me. When I asked Victor about it, he said, "It's a seating strategy. Don't take it personally." Personal. How strange that humiliation is often described as business by the person causing it. Throughout the evening, I watched Celia float beside him. Gloria introduced her to old family friends. Investors leaned in when she spoke. Victor laughed too loudly. Every time I approached, the conversation tightened. Then came the toast. Victor stood near the stage with a microphone, glowing under the lights. He spoke about vision, legacy, bold partnerships, the future of the waterfront. He thanked city officials, investors, consultants, his mother, Celia, not me. Not once. Then he said, "This project has required people who understand ambition at the highest level, people who do not shrink from greatness, people who know when to step forward and when to step aside." Gloria looked at me. Celia smiled into her glass. I felt the room tilt slightly. After the toast, I walked toward Victor. Not angrily, not loudly. I simply needed to ask why. Why invite me at all? Why seat me like a stranger? Why mention every person except the wife who had kept him standing through the years when no one else believed his name was worth printing? I reached him near the center of the ballroom. "Victor," I said quietly. He turned, irritated. "Not now." "Yes, now." Celia stood beside him. Gloria was only a few feet away. A circle of investors watched from nearby, pretending not to listen. You thanked everyone, I said, except me. His jaw tightened. Nadia, please don't do this. Do what? Ask to be seen? Celia murmured. This is not the time. I turned to her. And who asked you? A few people gasped softly. Victor's face changed, not into guilt, into rage dressed as embarrassment. He picked up a glass of red wine from the table beside him. For 1 second, I thought he only wanted something to do with his hand. Then he lifted it and poured it over my head. The wine was cold. That is the detail I remember most. Cold as it ran through my hair. Cold as it soaked the front of my dress. Cold as it stained my mother's pendant ribbon. The room froze. Victor leaned close and said, "Now maybe you'll remember your place." That was the moment the last soft part of my marriage died. I did not cry. I did not run. I did not scream. I wiped my face with a napkin and asked if he was finished. He expected me to break. Instead, I turned and walked out of the ballroom. Behind me, whispers rose like insects. In the restroom, a young attendant stared at me with wide eyes. "Ma'am," she whispered, "are you okay?" I looked at myself in the mirror. Red wine in my hair. Cream dress ruined. Mother's necklace still at my throat. My face was calm in a way that almost frightened me. "No," I said, "but I will be." I called a car and went straight to my father's printing shop. It was closed, dark, and dusty. I had not been there in months, maybe longer. The air smelled the same. Ink, paper, metal, memory. I walked to the back room, found the blue safe behind the old cutting table, and used the brass key my mother had given me. Inside were files, many files. At the top was a folder labeled Adewale Legacy Group. My hands trembled as I opened it. There were corporate documents, trust papers, share certificates, letters from attorneys, investment records, ownership charts, and my father's handwriting on a sealed envelope. My Nadia, if you open this, something has made you ready. You knew me as a printer. That was true, but it was not all. Years ago, I began investing in the companies that supplied paper, ink, packaging, distribution, printing technology, then land and infrastructure tied to media and development. I learned that men in suits often need quiet men in shops more than they know. Adewale Legacy Group owns stakes in many things. Some small, some not. One of them is Meridian North Holdings. If Victor has honored you, then this will be a blessing to both of you. If Victor has dishonored you, then remember what your mother said. Endurance is not obedience. The final authority over the Meridian North vote belongs to you. Do not sign anything your spirit rejects. Your daddy. I sat down on the floor. Meridian North. The company signing Victor's billion-dollar deal. My father's hidden company. My inheritance. My signature. For years, Victor had treated my family like a footnote. He mocked the printing shop as old economy. He called my foundation cute. He said I did not understand high-level business. And the whole time, the deal that could make him powerful depended on a company my father had quietly built into the room. I laughed then. Not happily. It came out broken. Then I cried. Not for Victor. For my father, my mother, myself. For every year I had stood beside a man who measured power by noise and never understood the quiet machine beneath his own feet. The next morning, I called the attorney listed in the folder. Her name was Helena Brooks. She was already expecting me. That did not surprise me as much as it should have. "Mrs. Langley," she said, "your father left instructions that I was to wait until you contacted me." "It's Nadia Adewale," I said. There was a pause. Then warmth entered her voice. "Good." Her office was on the 23rd floor of a downtown building with clean glass walls and a view of the harbor Victor wanted to reshape. I arrived in a black dress, hair still faintly stained where the wine had touched it. Helena saw it. She said nothing about it. That was the first reason I trusted her. She explained everything slowly. Adewale Legacy Group was private, layered, and far larger than I understood. My father had started small, investing through relationships formed in the printing industry. Over decades, those investments had grown into holdings across logistics, paper supply, packaging, data systems, land rights, and infrastructure companies. Meridian North Holdings was one of them. Not fully owned by us, but controlled through enough voting power and contractual rights that no major deal moved without our approval. Harborline 1 needed Meridian North. Meridian North needed my signature. Victor needed me, and he had poured wine on me less than 12 hours before the signing review. Helena placed the deal summary in front of me. Victor Langley is scheduled to present final assurances this afternoon. The board expected your approval by end of day. I stared at the papers. What happens if I refuse? Then the deal pauses at minimum, possibly collapses, depending on how the other parties react. Would it be legal? You are not obligated to approve a billion-dollar deal with unresolved reputational, governance, and risk concerns. I looked at her. Does public humiliation count as reputational risk? Helena's mouth tightened. When the man seeking approval assaults the controlling signatory in front of 200 witnesses? Yes. Assault. The word sat heavily. Victor would have called it a scene, a misunderstanding, a private matter, a marital disagreement. Helena called it what it was. That afternoon, Victor walked into Meridian North's boardroom wearing the same confidence he had worn for years like armor. Celia was with him. Gloria was not, thankfully. Several attorneys, investors, and executives were already seated. I entered 5 minutes later. The room changed before Victor saw me. One executive stood, then another. Helena walked beside me. Victor turned. For one beautiful second, he did not understand. Then he saw where I sat, at the head of the table. Celia's face went pale. Victor forced a laugh. Nadia, what is this? I opened the folder in front of me. This is the final review meeting for Harborline 1. His eyes moved around the room, searching for someone to correct me. No one did. Helena spoke calmly. Mrs. Adewale is the controlling voting representative for Adewale Legacy Group's interest in Meridian North Holdings. Victor stared at her, then at me. Adewale Legacy Group? I looked at him. My father's company. Celia whispered, Your father owned Meridian North? Controlled key interests, Helena corrected. Victor sat down slowly. For once, he had nothing polished to say. The meeting began. Helena reviewed governance issues. Another attorney discussed public conduct risk. An executive raised concerns about leadership stability. Someone mentioned the gala incident, not in detail, but enough. Victor tried to speak. He said it was personal. I said nothing. He said emotions were high. I said nothing. He said he respected me deeply. That was when I looked up. The room went still. Victor, I said, do not lie in a room full of documents. His mouth closed. Celia looked at the table. I turned to the board. Harborline 1 may be profitable. It may even be impressive on paper, but I cannot approve a deal of this size under leadership that mistakes humiliation for control and disrespect for authority. Victor's face reddened. Nadia, please. The word pleased me less than I expected. Because I did not want his begging. I wanted the years back, and no signature could give me that. I continued. My father built quietly because he believed real power should never need to announce itself by crushing someone weaker. Last night, Mr. Langley showed me exactly how he uses power when he thinks no one important is watching. I closed the folder. I will not sign. The room breathed in. Victor stood. You cannot do this. I just did. You are destroying a billion-dollar project because of one argument? No, I said. You endangered a billion-dollar project because you thought your wife had no consequences. The silence after that was absolute. Celia did not leave with Victor. That was the part people later whispered about. When the meeting ended, she walked out separately, phone already in hand, probably calling someone who could help her exit the sinking ship before her silver dress got wet. Victor waited near the elevator. His face was pale now, anger and fear fighting behind his eyes. Nadia, he said. I stopped. You should have told me. About what? Your father, Meridian North. All of it. I looked at him carefully. If you needed my father to be powerful before you respected him, that says everything. His jaw tightened. I made a mistake last night. No, I said. You revealed a pattern last night. He lowered his voice. Please, we can fix this. I almost believed he meant the marriage. Then he said, there are other investors watching this deal. If it collapses, everything I've built. There it is, I said. What? Everything you built? He looked confused. I stepped closer. My father printed your first brochures. My mother altered your first gala suit when you could not afford tailoring. I helped organize your earliest investor dinners. I covered your vendors. I smiled through your mother's insults. I stood beside you when nobody knew your name. And you still call it everything you built. He looked away. For the first time, shame touched his face. But shame after exposure is not the same as repentance. I walked into the elevator. He did not follow. By the next week, the Harbor Line 1 deal was suspended. By the next month, 2 investors withdrew. By the third month, Victor resigned as lead developer under pressure from the board. The official statement called it a strategic leadership transition. Public language is often where truth goes to wear a suit. Gloria called me once. I answered because I wanted to hear what desperation sounded like in pearls. Nadia, she said, voice tight. This has gone far enough. No, Gloria. It went too far when your son poured wine on me. He was under pressure. So was I. I did not assault anyone with a beverage. She inhaled sharply. You are enjoying this. No, I said. That is what your family never understood. I did not want revenge. I wanted respect. Since that was unavailable, I accepted distance. She had no answer. Victor sent flowers. Then emails. Then one handwritten letter. I read it only because Helena advised me to document everything. He wrote that he was sorry, that he had been arrogant, that Celia meant nothing, that the pressure of the deal had made him lose himself, that he loved me, that he wanted to meet without lawyers. I placed the letter in a folder labeled Pending Divorce Communications. That was the most romantic thing I had left to give him. The divorce took 8 months. Victor fought at first, then negotiated, then softened when he realized my father's legal structures were older than our marriage and stronger than his pride. He could not touch Adewale Legacy Group. He could not claim Meridian North. He could not rewrite my inheritance as marital opportunity. The house was sold. I did not want it. Too many rooms remembered silence. I moved into the apartment above my father's old printing shop while I decided what to do next. At first, everyone thought I would sell the building. Developers had wanted that corner for years. I did not sell. I reopened it, not as a printing shop only, as the Adewale Women's Enterprise House. The front still printed flyers, business cards, menus, invitations, and funeral programs at low cost for small businesses and families. The back became a training room. We taught women bookkeeping, branding, contract basics, vendor negotiation, and how not to sign documents they did not understand. I kept my father's old machine. It still made too much noise. I loved it. A year after the gala, Meridian North approved a different waterfront project. Smaller, cleaner, community-backed. It included affordable business spaces, public access areas, and environmental protections Victor had dismissed as unnecessary. At the signing, Helena placed the documents in front of me. This time, I signed. Not because the deal was mine, because it was worthy. Afterward, a journalist asked why I had rejected the earlier billion-dollar proposal. I could have told the whole story. The wine, the ballroom, the humiliation, Celia's silver dress, Gloria's smile, Victor's face when he realized who I was. Instead, I said, leadership is revealed before power is granted. We did not like what was revealed. That quote traveled farther than I expected. People guessed. Some knew. Victor definitely knew. Months later, I saw him once. Not in court, not in a boardroom, not at a gala. At my father's old printing shop, he stood outside after closing, holding his phone, looking through the window at the machine in the back. He looked thinner, less polished, not ruined exactly. Men like Victor rarely fall all the way. The world catches them too often. But he looked smaller. I opened the door. Victor. He turned. Nadia. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, I never understood this place. I know. I thought it was small. It was. He looked surprised. I continued, but small does not mean powerless. He nodded slowly. I am sorry. I looked at him for a long time. Some apologies arrive too late to repair anything, but still early enough to show that something in the person finally cracked open. I hear you, I said. His eyes flickered with hope. That hope saddened me. I forgive you, I added. But you cannot come in. The hope disappeared. Then, after a moment, he nodded. Maybe that was the first respectful thing he ever did without being rewarded for it. He walked away. I locked the door. The machine hummed softly behind me. For the first time, the sound did not feel like the past. It felt like inheritance. People asked me if I was humiliated that night. Yes, of course I was. A woman does not stand soaked in wine before 200 people and feel nothing. My dress was ruined. My hair smelled sour for 2 days. My mother's necklace had to be cleaned carefully. Videos surfaced online, though Helena's team removed most of them before they spread too far. But humiliation did not destroy me. It clarified me. It showed me who would laugh, who would look away, who would help, who would call it pressure, who would call it what it was. And most importantly, it showed me that silence had protected Victor for too long. My husband poured wine on me in front of 200 guests because he believed I had no power in that room. He believed power was seated near the stage. Wearing silver, holding champagne, speaking into microphones, making billion-dollar promises under chandeliers. He did not understand that real power had been printed in small letters years before, filed in quiet folders, locked in a blue safe, built by a man in an ink-stained apron who knew that the people controlling the paper often outlast the people posing for the picture. Victor thought he was teaching me my place. He was right, just not in the way he meant. My place was not at table 19, not under his shadow, not beside a man who needed me invisible until my signature became useful. My place was at the head of the table, where decisions are made with clean hands. My place was in my father's shop, turning paper into proof. My place was in every room where women are taught to read the small print before someone uses love to take their name, their labor, their money, or their voice. And if there is one lesson I carry now, it is this. When someone humiliates you publicly, do not rush to prove your worth loudly. Stand still. Wipe your face. Watch who smiles. Watch who stays silent. Watch who reaches for a napkin. Then go home. Open the safe. Read the documents. Remember your name. And never again sign a deal that requires you to disappear.